The July 14, 2018 brutal murder of Harith Augustus by the United States despots, Ku Klux Klan members disguised in Chicago Police Department law enforcement uniforms. Look at the photo. You can see this white woman. Ku Klux Klan members approaching Harith Augustus with deadly weapons. From the news, it appears the officers involved will be placed on administrative duties for a month. KKK rebrand. Blacks, Hispanics, gays, and Jews now welcomed by Ku Klux Klan. And who is the law firm and or legal counsel for this type of white supremacist group? None other than the same law firm that represents the United States of America. Baker, Donaldson, Bierman, Caldwell, and Berkowitz. So look for a massive and or huge cover-up in the first-degree murder of Harith Augustus. According to the white man's laws, each person has the right to resist an unlawful arrest. In such a case, the person attempting the arrest stands in the position of a wrongdoer and may be resisted by the use of force in self-defense. And this is the case that appears that happened with Harith Augustus. He was being subjected and attacked by Ku Klux Klan members disguised in law enforcement uniforms of the Chicago Police Department. Harith Augustus had a legal, lawful duty to defend himself against an assault, kidnapping, unlawful arrest, etc. by terrorists, white supremacists, racists disguised in law enforcement uniform. It is important to note one may come to the aid of another. So if you see someone being subjected to assault by such racist and or terrorist organizations as the Ku Klux Klan's law enforcement that's disguised in these police uniforms, yes, one may come to the aid of another being unlawfully arrested by the likes of such Klansmen that have disguised themselves in law enforcement uniforms. For it is not an offense to liberate, that means to free, one from the unlawful custody of the Klan's law enforcement members. One may come to the aid of another being unlawfully arrested, just as he may where one is being assaulted, molested, raped, or kidnapped. Thus, it is not an offense to liberate one from the unlawful custody of an officer, even though he may have submitted to such custody without resistance. Living in a police state. Yes, the United States despots, Nazis, and or white Jews, Zionists, and Supremacists were eager to release the video in regards to the brutal first-degree murder of Harith Augustus. Look, for instance, in the first photo, Ku Klux Klan members approaching Harith Augustus with deadly weapons, arm on the gun. Look at the photo below. Note, the shirt is down on Harith Augustus, who came under vicious attack by Ku Klux Klan members disguised in law enforcement uniform. White hands pull up shirt. This is an unlawful, illegal search. Illegal and unlawful search. Again, premeditated murder. They knew, or they should have known, so they were trying to set him up so that they can cover up the reason why they gunned down and brutally murdered this brother. Photos showing evidence of the white Ku Klux Klan members disguised in Chicago Police Department uniforms lunging and attacking Harith Augustus. That is not a gun in his hand, but his ID, that it appears from video. He was presenting to what looks to be a black Ku Klux Klan member when he came under such vicious attack. Criminal acts, assault, use of deadly force, acts of terrorism, crimes against humanity, crimes against peace, etc., incited by white Ku Klux Klan members disguised in law enforcement uniforms. Right to keep and bear arms. The right to keep and bear arms is the person's right to possess weapons for their own defense. Using such laws as the white man's Second Amendment, as the Utica International Embassy is doing in the building of a new government for natives, Native Americans, and those who have been labeled by the white man as being blacks, Negroes, African Americans, and people of color? Well, that Second Amendment states in part, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Therefore, Native Americans, and those who have been labeled by the white men as being blacks, Negroes, African Americans, and people of color have a legal duty and or obligation to form their own militia against the United States despots' white supremacist militia empire. Yes, legally and lawfully. Why? Because the Ku Klux Klan, from articles, have gone about trying to rebrand themselves, where they are now what? Recruiting blacks, Hispanics, gays, and Jews to cover up their terrorist attacks and racist attacks against such protected and our sovereign citizens as Native Americans, and those labeled by the white man as being blacks, Negroes, African Americans, and people of color. Why Fred Waller, the Chicago Police Patrol Chief, told media officers saw a bulge in his trousers they believed to be a gun. The trousers of Harith Augustus. That did not justify the unwarranted search and or vicious, malicious attack upon the brother. When they approached the man, he started flailing and swinging away, trying to make an escape. There it is. There it is. His own testimony by Fred Waller. It appears from this statement, Harith Augustus was trying to resist, which he had a legal and or lawful duty to do. Why? Because he was being attacked by these white supremacist members disguised in law enforcement uniform. Don't have the Ku Klux Klan patrolling your neighborhood. Take control.
Violent protests erupted in Chicago this weekend after another fatal police shooting. 4 protesters were arrested and a number of officers were injured by rocks and bottles. As Meg Oliver reports, police say the man who was shot and killed by an officer was armed with what appeared to be a handgun.
The violent confrontation lasted for hours Saturday night as protesters threw rocks and bottles and police fought back with batons. It all started when several Chicago police officers on foot spotted a man they say was armed.
They approached the subject who became combative.
Willful admission testimony of Fred Waller, Chief of Patrol Division, Chicago Police Department. They approached a subject who became combative. Let's look at the photo. It's evidence. Look at this white Ku Klux Klan member. Looks like a woman. So Ku Klux Klan members approaching Harith Augustus with deadly weapons. And in this photo you see this white police officer's hand on the gun while approaching Harith Augustus, who appears to already be conversating with a black Ku Klux Klan police law enforcement officer. But nevertheless, here come the white people. Here come the white Ku Klux Klan Nazi and supremacists. Important to note, evidence appears to show that it was police who approached Harith Augustus without just cause, and Ku Klux Klan officers are armed with deadly weapons and are the ones who approach Augustus in combative mode, thus putting Harith Augustus in fear of his life, etc. Ku Klux Klan Chicago police officers are shown to be in premeditated murder mode to commit first-degree murder, which is any intentional murder that is willful and premeditated with malice aforethought. They knew or they should have known that when they approached Mr. Augustus, armed with deadly weapons, hands on their weapons, they were creating a very terrifying situation, very horrific situation. And they did it because through such conspiracies and contemplations, they set out to murder Harith Augustus.
And as he became combative, flaying away, he broke free from the officers.
Evidence by the chief that Harith Augustus was flailing, as they call it, and that he broke free. But yet and still, from the photo, you can see Harith Augustus under attack by the Ku Klux Klan's members disguised in police uniform. Important to note, it is Harith Augustus that appears to have come under hostile combative attack by the Ku Klux Klan's Chicago Police Department, one of the United States despot's terrorist cells, in fear of his life and flailing away. Flailing defined is to wave or swing, or to cause to wave or swing wildly. Then he broke free from such hostile terrorists, white supremacists, racists, nevertheless just to be pursued and brutally gunned down.
What they thought he appeared to be reaching for a weapon, which he did have a weapon on him, and the officers tragically shot this man.
So there it is, Fred Waller's testimony. What they thought. He appeared to be reaching for a weapon. When you all saw in the photo, his shirt was down. No weapons were being shown. No weapons seen. He appeared to be reaching for a weapon, which he did have a weapon on him. An officer tragically shot this man. Important to know, Fred Waller was counseled in the drafting of a response and clearly fails to make known to the public world the illegal, unlawful, and unauthorized body search of Harith Augustus by the Ku Klux Klan's Chicago Police Department officers. A white hand is shown pulling up the shirt of Harith Augustus. Moreover, what was the justified reason, if any, for the officers' encounter with Augustus and stopping him?
Man, 37-year-old Harith Augustus, died later at the hospital. Police recovered a handgun and 2 magazines at the scene. For a police department under fierce scrutiny over its policing in Black and Latino communities, this is the 3rd time in the last 2 weeks that a Chicago police officer shot someone. Residents described Augustus as a father who worked in a local barbershop and a friend to many.
He's not a drug dealer. He's not a gang member. He's not a documented gang member. He's not that. He worked to provide for his 5-year-old daughter, and his life was taken from him by Chicago Police Department last night.
The 3rd time in 2 weeks that the Ku Klux Klan's law enforcement Chicago Police Department shot someone, thus further supporting Harith Augustus's right to bear arms to protect himself. Again, federal triumphs under the white man's law over state. However, it did not justify the Nazis and or the white Jews, Zionist supremacists, Ku Klux Klan members disguised in Chicago Police Department uniforms, brutally engaging in terrorist acts against Mr. Augustus, which resulted in his death. Red is for the uniting of blood in pursuit of our common goals for liberation and freedom from the same oppressors. Black is for our collective actions in taking our fate out of the white man's hands. Green is for the restoration of lands, territories, healthy lives, economic well-being, and prosperity for God's people. Important to note, evidence appears to show that it was Ku Klux Klan members disguised in law enforcement uniforms who approached Harith Augustus without just cause. In Chicago Police Department, Ku Klux Klan members are armed with deadly weapons and approach Augustus in combative mode, premeditated murder mode, to commit first-degree murder, which is any intentional murder that is willful and premeditated with malice aforethought.
Chicago police say they will release the body cam video, which they say proves Augustus had a gun and was reaching for it during the confrontation. DeMarco.
All right, Meg Oliver reporting. Meg, thank you.
Video evidence will show that Harith Augustus was merely trying to pull up his pants after coming under attack by white Ku Klux Klan members disguised in Chicago police uniforms. Furthermore, white Ku Klux Klan member pulling up Augustus's shirt to support an unlawful and unauthorized body search. Augustus legally, lawfully fleeing for his life after coming under a vicious attack by white Ku Klux Klan members disguised in Chicago Police Department uniforms, approaching him with their hands on deadly weapons as guns. It appears Augustus was merely trying to hold up his pants and was forced into combative defensive state.
And as he became combative, flading away, he broke free from the officers.
Yes, sovereign citizens under attack by the likes of the Nazis and or white Jews, Zionists, and supremacist Ku Klux Klan members disguised in law enforcement uniforms as the Chicago Police Departments may resist unlawful arrest to the point of taking and arresting officers' life if necessary. In the Harith Augustus matter, guns were already drawn Hands were already on the deadly weapons because from the very beginning it was premeditated. The white Jews, Zionist supremacist members moved in with intent to commit first-degree murder. In John Bad Elk versus the United States, 3 policemen in South Dakota attempted under verbal orders to arrest another policeman for an alleged violation of law when no charge had been formally made against him and no warrant had issued for his arrest. Those attempting to make the arrest carried arms, and when he refused to go, they tried to oblige him to do so by force. He fired and killed one of them. He was arrested, tried for murder, and convicted. The Supreme Court of the United States held that the court clearly erred or made a mistake in charging that the policeman had the right to arrest the plaintiff in error and to use such force as was necessary to accomplish the arrest, and that the plaintiff in error had no right to resist it. So, the plaintiff had a right to resist. At common law, if a party resisted arrest by an officer without warrant and who had no right to arrest him, and in the course of that resistance the officer was killed, the offense of the party resisting, now the party that's resisting the arrest, not the officer now, would be reduced to what would have been murder if the officer had the right to arrest, to manslaughter. So in this case, the Ku Klux Klan members that were involved in the brutal first-degree murder of Harith Augustus cannot plead manslaughter. That was premeditated first-degree murder and other crimes committed against Mr. Augustus. Yes, the white Jews Zionist mayor, Rahm Emanuel, who is presently serving as the mayor of the city of Chicago, Illinois, has to go. For those who don't know, he was also chief of staff for the white woman's son, Barack Hussein Obama. All in the plan. How many of you were deceived by that white woman's son? Red is for the uniting of blood in pursuit of our common goals for liberation and freedom from the same oppressors. Black is for our collective actions in taking our fate out of the white man's hands. Green for the restoration of lands, territories, healthy lives, economic well-being, and prosperity for God's people. Yes, for instance, just like this young lady's advertisement, it is important to know that the United States despotism government regime is an illegal and or unlawful government. Not even operating legally and or lawfully. Therefore, the despotism system of the United States can be overthrown. There is no need to reform it. It needs to be overthrown. Important to note, one may come to the aid of another being unlawfully arrested by the likes of such Klansmen that have disguised themselves in law enforcement uniforms. For it is not an offense to liberate, which means to free, one from the unlawful custody of the Klan's law enforcement. So, on July the 14th, had there been other people standing by that saw the horrific criminal activities, the terrorist acts being carried out against Harith Augustus, it is important for the public in the world to know they could have stepped in to liberate and to free the brother from these terrorists, these white supremacists. But because someone didn't know, the brother is now deceased. One may come to the aid of another being unlawfully arrested, just as he may where one is being assaulted, molested, raped, or kidnapped. Again, examples of what happened on July 14th to Harith Augustus. Thus, it is not an offense to liberate one from the unlawful custody of an officer, even though he may have submitted to such custody without resistance. Some of the criminal acts by the Ku Klux Klan's Chicago Police Department officers against Harith Augustus: first-degree murder, aggravated assault, assault and battery, use of deadly force, terrorism, crimes against peace, crimes against humanity, inciting a riot for purposes of financing further acts of terrorism through unlawful arrests, police brutality, incited by white Ku Klux Klan members disguised in law enforcement uniforms. The Utica International Embassy, not a movement, but a lawfully formed new government, liberating God's people. Our toll-free number is 888-700-5056 or 513-680-2922. Legally, lawfully bringing change.